Judith Butler says, gender norms operate by requiring the embodiment of certain ideals in femininity and masculinity, ones that are always almost related to the idealization of the heterosexual bond. In doing so, one's gender should directly correspond to their behavior. As adults, we see this in our relationships, and we also hear this in our rhetoric. Women are expected to be emotional, anecdotal, and self-disclosing, whereas men are expected to have a developed idea supported by effective evidence with a powerful stance. However, the double bind in the delivery of speakers stems from the gender roles themselves. Male speakers have the option to be both anecdotal and rhetorically stable, while women cannot. Carolyn Kors Campbell writes that women in early public advocacy mainly revolved around women's concerns, the poor, and the orphaned. These topics are viewed as feminine, so in 1983, when Hillary Clinton sought to reform education in Arkansas, she was well perceived because schools and school teachers are traditionally roles upheld by women. She was also seen as feminine because she was working to being a supportive wife to her husband's agenda.
Because we're going to give them every chance we can to develop their minds so that they can play a role in this state and this country to make it the kind of place it needs to be.
Interestingly, throughout the Clintons' time in public sphere, every time something negative happened to or by Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton was to blame. Sometimes this was a strategy for her husband's approval ratings, and other times it was just destructive to Hillary's character. When Bill lost the re-election as governor of Arkansas, it was because she didn't have his last name. She was often questioned about keeping her last name and describes the decision as keeping their work life separate from their married life.
I didn't want anyone ever to think that I was either taking advantage of his position or in some way riding on it.
The political gain for Bill if Hillary was a Clinton and not a Rodham is that the American family gender roles would be upheld. However, since she did not take his name and she broke the behavioral patterns that go along with gender norms, she was seen by the public as such. In addition to changing her name, she also changed her looks. She lightened her hair, got contact lenses. However, her presence on the television was still framed in a very specific way. When allegations surfaced about his potential marital infidelity, she was in the news cycle for standing by him. Steve Kroft even went so far as to imply that, quote, the Clintons had reached some sort of an arrangement to stay married.
You know, I'm not sitting here as some little woman standing by my man like Tammy Wynette.
The New York Times ran the tagline, quote, she's nobody's little woman, implying that she cannot be controlled by her husband. Some view this as a strategy because the soundbite became the issue instead of Bill's alleged adultery. After more cheating controversy, she was even on the cover of Spy magazine photoshopped as a dominatrix in the White House. In a debate between Jerry Brown and Bill Clinton, Brown accused Bill of funneling money into Hillary's firm. Her response ran as a soundbite on every news cycle for days.
I suppose I could have stayed home and baked cookies and had teas, but what I decided to do was to fulfill my profession, which I entered before my husband was in public life.
This soundbite displayed her lawyer-like style of rhetoric, and in doing so offended many women and stay-at-home moms. She went on the offensive to show she was strong, but based on what feminine rhetoric says, she should have been more docile. However, as she became more involved in the economic and political realm, the public viewed her as calculated and pushing her own political agenda. During this time, she was framed on camera like a male with low camera angles. This angle presents her as a powerful and overbearing person, whereas other women, and especially first ladies, are framed more delicately. Even as a presidential hopeful in 2008, Hillary Clinton was still subjected to being defined and described by her domestic roles.
I've been saying it for months. Men won't vote for Hillary Clinton because she reminds them of their nagging wives.
When Barack Obama speaks, men hear, take off for the future. And when Hillary Clinton speaks, men hear, take out the garbage.
In 2016, Hillary became the first female to be the presidential nominee of a major party. These were just a few of the newspapers to circulate the following day. Not only is Bill Clinton starring in these photos, but the article is also on the right side of the page. In American culture, we read left to right, so it's standard to have the most important thing on the page on the left. Notice that this historic news is on the right. Also in the 2016 election, Clinton was interrupted numerous times. Since she already displays masculine rhetorical traits, she cannot fight back when spoken over. If she did go on the attack, she would have been viewed as shrill, an emotionally charged person, and in turn unfit for the stressful job as president. In this instance, she uses femininity as a strategy, whereas in past scandals it was used against her while promoting her husband's likability and taking the spotlight off of his indiscretions. Successful orators present an argument with clarity, use appropriate and compelling evidence, and make themselves and their argument relatable to their audience. Feminine rhetorical style, however, states that female speakers are expected to reaffirm their womanliness discursively while also demonstrating those rhetorical competencies. Meanwhile, news stations benefit. Because they are able to frame the subject in a way that promotes scandal and controversy, more viewers will tune in and gain interest. As a nation, our failure to appreciate the highly developed argumentative skills of an expert advocate when the advocate is a female reveals our deficiencies, not hers.